Is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Steam Deck verified? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not Steam Deck verified as of now. The team is working on optimizing the game for the gaming handheld. What are the minimum and recommended graphics cards for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC mentions NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060, AMD Radeon RX 6600, or Intel Arc A580 as minimum graphics cards. Its recommended graphics cards are NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070 or AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT. The specifications are rather reasonable, but the game takes up 155 gigabytes of storage, which is quite a lot of space. There are 3 default settings: minimum, recommended, and ultra. At the minimum settings, the game will run at 30 frames per second at 1080p, while the recommended and ultra settings will run at 60 frames per second at 1080p and 2160p, respectively. Does Final Fantasy VII Rebirth support controller input on PC? Yes, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC supports controller input, including the PS5 DualSense controller. Will Final Fantasy VII Rebirth have post-launch DLC? Square Enix has no plans to release any DLC for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth PC specs.
Minimum.
Graphics setting: 30 frames per second / 1080p. Graphics quality low. OS: Windows 10 64-bit. CPU: AMD Ryzen 5 1400/Intel Core 14 to 8100. GPU: AMD Radeon RX 6600/Intel Arc 1580/NVIDIA GeForce RRX 2060, AMD Radeon RX 6600 or later model required /NVIDIA GeForce RTX Series or later model required. Memory: 16 GB. Storage: 155 GB SSD. Notes: GPU memory of 12 GB or greater recommended if a 4K monitor is used. Graphics card supporting shader model 6.6 or a later version and OS supporting DirectX 12 Ultimate required. Recommended. Graphics setting: 60 frames per second / 1080p. OS: Windows 11 64-bit. CPU: AMD Ryzen 5 5600/AMD Ryzen 7 3700X/Intel Core i7-8700/Intel Core i5-10400. GPU: AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT/NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070. Memory: 16 GB. Storage: 155 GB SSD. Notes: GPU memory 12 GB or greater recommended if 4K monitor is used. Ultra. Graphics setting: 60 frames per second / 2160p. OS: Windows 11 64-bit. CPU: AMD Ryzen 7 5700X/Intel Core i7-10700. GPU: AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX/NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080. Memory: 16 GB. Storage: 155 GB SSD. Notes: GPU memory 16 GB or greater recommended if 4K monitor is used.